Any new people around the table or in the chairs that want to be introduced? Seeing none, okay. Approval of the agenda is item number 3. You will see 2 handouts at your places. One is the Hampton Roads Regional Legislation Agenda, that's just FYI. And the other one is Public Engagement Plan. This one, we're going to ask to amend the agenda and make this item number 11 and shift everything down. So if nobody, I don't know if you want to talk to that any, or if anybody want to make a motion to approve that? The agenda with that modification? Thank you.
Second.
Thank you. All in favor? Any opposed? Okay, so the agenda has been modified. Item number 4 is public comments. I don't believe we have any submitted ones. Is there anybody here from the public that would like to address the group? All right, this is easy. Number 5, comments and updates from state and federal agencies. Start with VDOT.
Good morning and Happy New Year. A couple of announcements. We are still working through validating the revenue sharing applications. Yesterday at the CTB meeting, they presented on the FY27-28 TAC program. There was a total of 89 applications statewide. 17 of those applications are in the Hampton Roads area. Just one of those applications is outside of the TMA area. And right now, the MPO is expected to get an allocation of $7.2 million. So I spoke with John earlier, and we should be discussing the TAP projects at the next TPS subcommittee meeting. We don't have the dates yet for the 6-year program hearing. We anticipate getting that in the next couple of weeks. But I did want to make you aware that we are in the process of planning and programming for the next 6-year program. And then I believe Angela has an announcement.
Good morning, everyone. I just wanted to remind all the localities that Smart Scale is coming up. Pre-applications open up in March. We have been reaching out to all the localities concerning any projects you would like to submit for Smart Scale. If we have already reached out to you and you still have some items on the table you would like to discuss, please feel free to reach out to myself or Jerry Pauley, who is the point of contact for Smart Scale. Thank you.
Thank you. DRPT?
Good morning.
Good morning.
So just a couple of items for updating. We are currently in our fiscal year 27 grant application cycle. So that is set to be open until February 1st. This is outside of the typical Section 5303 application that is usually due until May 1st. But we just always encourage any of our transit agencies as well as localities that there are other funding opportunities, including like technical assistance, as well as demonstration funding that we can provide for you. So if you have any questions about any of our funding programs, please reach out to myself or any of your DRPT contacts. I think besides that, the big news is that we have announced our new director for DRPT. That is Maria Zimmerman. That announcement came out on Monday. So we are still working through the transition. I don't have any other official information, but we are excited to see her join us at DRPT. And then I think besides that, to kind of piggyback on VDOT's update, Smart Scale Round 7, I believe in previous months I provided updates that we were reaching out to any of our transit agencies as well as localities that had any interest in a transit project. We had those meetings all the way through until about the end of October, but if there's still interest, please reach out to us so that we can provide any kind of guidance, especially if you have a transit primary project that you're considering. And that's all I have for my updates. Thank you.
Thank you. Port?
Good morning. Happy New Year. No update this morning. Thank you.
Thank you. And FHWA, military liaisons. Okay, so moving on to item number 6, election of officers and nominating subcommittee chair Dave Jarman. I think is good.
All right. Good morning. So I have good news and bad news. Keith Dare has agreed to be our nominee for the 2026 for chair. As of today, right now, I don't have a nominee for vice chair. So our recommendation would be, unless somebody wants to volunteer, and I'll give the uncomfortable pause. Okay. We would propose that we push the vice chair nominee or nomination until February, at which time we hope to have a recommendation, a nominee for the group to decide. Okay?
Great, thank you. So I guess I'll take a motion to, or would it be a motion to approve Keith? Okay, yeah, approve Keith to move into the chair position. All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Okay, all right, so I will hand everything over to Keith. And I'll just say, it's not a terrible job to be the vice chair. Or the chair, as you know.
Unless the chair decides to leave for a few months, which I don't plan on doing.
So, yeah, and you learn a lot, and there's a great group of staff here, so really, it's not bad. Encourage anyone to step up to the plate. Thanks.
All right, moving on over here. Let's see. Number 7, going through we've got a few things that we need just for the consent items here, get the approval, the minutes, and the tip amendments. So hopefully you guys have had a chance to review those. And with that, I'll ask for a motion to approve. Thank you. Second? Awesome. Thank you. Approved. All right. Next item number 8. The state of transportation presentation. No?
Okay. Thanks. Just trying to get to that point in my agenda here. Apologize. Okay, all right. Apologize for the delay. So this is a final of the State of Transportation in Hampton Roads 2025. This item, the draft was presented to the TTAC in November, and there were no comments from the final report, and it is available at the following link. And if you do have any questions on this item, Mr. Keith Nichols is here to answer them. And so this is for approval to be recommended to the HRTPO board on the final report.
So with that, I will get a motion to approve. Thank you. Second? Thank you. That one's approved. All right, next one, agenda item number 9, 2050 LRTP. Dale.
Good morning, everyone. Happy New Year. So I'm starting off with our 2050 Long-Range Transportation Plan vision statement. And what we're trying to accomplish is to provide effective transportation for all. So in terms of the 2050 LRTP, we are in the home stretch. We've developed the plan framework, our scenario planning framework, developed that future forecast for 2050 with our different growth scenarios, our vision, which I just showed, and the associated goals and objectives with that vision. Spent a long time identifying regional needs, over a year of collecting regional needs from different stakeholders and from the public, and then spent over a year evaluating and prioritizing those needs. So just have one last big hurdle, which is fiscal constraint. But why I'm here today is to have a recommendation to approve the prioritization scores that I showed last year in November. So this slide is just to remind you that it did take over a year to evaluate about 300 candidate projects. And this flow chart is just to show that it's a very methodical process for us to develop those regional needs, those candidate projects, identify which are committed, collect data, review that data, do a lot of analysis, evaluate, and then review the outputs. And then again, today we're here to approve the finalized prioritization scores. Just a reminder, our prioritization tool is set up to have 3 different components where we look at project utility, economic vitality, and project viability. And there's lots of submeasures, which within each of these components for us to really just identify the most robust projects for the region. Each component is worth 100 points for a total possible score of 300. So in your agenda packet are the final scores. We, as part of our, this is also, we'll also link this and we'll update our prioritization page on the TPO website so you have access to the final scores. But just as a reminder, these scores, draft scores were presented in November. We created an interactive dashboard for you all to review. And we went out to several committees to make sure that they could review all the data assumptions that went into those scores. The LRTP subcommittee, TTAC, of course, the Community Advisory Committee, the Freight Transportation Advisory Committee, Active Transportation Subcommittee, and then the Transit, Jeff, you're going to have to help me because I struggle, Regional Transit Working Group, something. I struggle with that acronym. They also reviewed the transit projects. We did receive some feedback on the data assumptions for a handful of the candidate projects, which resulted in a change in score for a few projects, which is reflected in your agenda package. We also had a public review from December 5th to the 19th. We did not receive any public comments. So looking ahead, how these scores are going to be used to fiscally constrain projects to include in the final 2050 long-range transportation plan. We're going to the board next week with your recommendation for the board to officially approve these prioritization scores. Sent out a doodle poll earlier this week for the LITP subcommittee to meet to do fiscal constraint. If you have not responded to that doodle poll, please do so today or tomorrow. We're trying to have it this month to produce the fiscally constrained list for the plan. In February, we will come back to TTAC to review the draft fiscally constrained list of projects, as well as those other committees that I mentioned that reviewed the draft prioritization scores. We will also have a 30-day public review of the 2050 project list. Then in March, we'll be seeking approval of that list, which really is the heart of the 2050 long-range transportation plan, both from this body and from the TPO board. And then starting our regional conformity assessment in March, hopefully in conjunction with the new TIP, we'll do this together and then have the board adopt the 2050 LRTP in May, which will become the official regional transportation plan for Hampton Roads for the next 5 years. So with that, I'd be happy to take any questions. Okay. Be happy to take a recommended action for approval.
All right, thank you, Dale. So with that, we are going to, if I can get a motion to approve the prioritization scores, please. Thank you. In a second. Thank you.
All right, thank you.
Thank you, Dale. All right, next up, we have the performance measures and targets. Mr. Nichols.
Good morning. Today I'll be making my annual presentation regarding the regional performance measures and targets that we need to set here at the TPO. Federal legislation currently requires that MPOs use a set of federally established performance measures, and for each of these measures we must set targets and also monitor progress. So the TTAC was tasked with producing these targets, and a few years ago the TTAC formed a regional performance measures working group to assist with these. The group met back in mid-December. So everything you see today as we discuss these proposed targets is based on a consensus of the working group that they set at their meeting. So today we only need to do the annual targets that you see at the top. Those are the safety and transit targets. The remaining targets you see down at the bottom, those are all 4-year targets. We will not need to reset those again until next year. So just as a reminder, though, when we set targets, there's a couple different things you can do. One, you can just adopt the statewide targets that VDOT sets, but makes specific for your MPA. You could also do unique MPO-specific targets, or you can mix and match. So, for example, for fatalities, you could do a statewide target, and for injuries, you could do a specific target to the MPO. There's no rules that you must stick with one or the other. The other thing I wanted to mention is there are no penalties, quote unquote, for the MPOs if we set targets that we do not meet. So that allows you to set more aspirational targets if you would like. It can be addressed during certification review, which we discussed and got a thumbs up on when we did that a couple years ago. So looking at safety targets, there are 5 that MPOs must set on an annual basis, and those are fatality, fatality rate, serious injuries, the serious injury rate, and then active transportation, fatalities and serious injuries combined. Now, historically, this group has set the safety targets based on a Vision Zero concept. And generally, that's been to reduce the number of each of these 5 fatalities, fatality rate, serious injury rate, and the active transportation ones, reduce them by a set amount each year so that we reach the level of 0 by the year 2050, or the horizon of our LRTP, which right now is 2050. So I'm showing you the targets we had there that we had set for 2025. Once again, they were all based on that Vision Zero concept. In terms of what the state does, they actually use a data-driven model based on a number of factors. I won't get too deep into it. There's a lot of different sets of data they tie into it, but that's based on a request that the CTP had set back in 2020 to make it a more data-driven process. However, the current legislation requires that states, when they set their safety targets, cannot set increasing targets, which is what Virginia was actually doing based on this data-driven model over the last few years. So based on that, the state still runs the data-driven model, but if it's showing an increase in the number of fatalities or serious injuries, then they have to set a lower target based on what's required from the IIJA. So real quickly, here's what the state put together as part of their safety targets. Their model, once again, is showing a prediction of an increase in fatalities. So what they ultimately ended up doing was setting a decreasing target to come up with a level approach when you look over a 5-year horizon. So over the next few slides, I'll show you each of those 5 safety factors and what some of the historical trends are in Hampton Roads, and then what the targets would be if we continued with the Vision Zero concept or if we went with the state method. So first thing I have on here is fatalities. You hear me every year come up here as part of the state of transportation and talk about bad news generally when it comes to safety and fatalities. And you can see the increases we've seen in our region really over the last decade. But fortunately, those numbers are starting to come down a little bit. In 2024, we were at 143 fatalities. So while this is still high relative to historical numbers, it is coming down from the high we saw almost 170 fatalities back in 2021. So that is relatively good news, even though we are still historically high. Based on a Vision Zero concept, if we use that, then our 2026 target would be 141 fatalities, which is a slight decrease from what we have in 2024. 2026 state method would show a slight increase, actually, at 145. When we look at the fatality rate, it's simply taking the data I showed you on the previous slide and then using a projected increase in VMT. So for the statewide targets, they used a 2.5% increase in VMT from 2024 levels. That's probably a little higher than we're seeing in our region, but not enough that I would defer or not use what the state was using as part of their targets. So if you use that 2.5% increase and compare it to the numbers I showed on the last slide, then the Vision Zero rate is about 0.96 fatalities per 100 million VMT. State method would be just over 1, as you see on there. Serious injuries is a little bit better news than we see in the fatalities. It's really been kind of level if you look over the last decade. Generally speaking, there's about 1,500, 1,600, even up to 1,700 serious injuries in any given year, but it goes up and down and fluctuates. No big increases like we've seen with fatalities. So using the Vision Zero concept, you get just over 1,500 serious injuries as a target for the year 2026. Using the VDOT method would be a little bit higher, around 1,600. Serious injury rate, same thing. The serious injury data divided by the expected projected increase in VMT. So you would get about a 10.35 serious injury rate per 100 million VMT if you use Vision Zero, and you get a higher number with the VDOT numbers. Last one is the combined bike and pedestrian fatalities and serious injuries. Once again, it's been largely level over the last few years, right around 200. In 2024, it looks like it was 199 fatalities and serious injuries for bicyclists and pedestrians. So using the Vision Zero concept, it's 183 for our target for 2026. VDOT method would be a little bit higher at 191. So as I mentioned, the working group met in mid-December to discuss this, and there was a consensus with the group that there was no reason to change what we've been doing. The Vision Zero concept is what we should continue moving forward with as a region in terms of our targets, rather than the state method. So using the Vision Zero numbers, you can see there on the left what the targets would be for 2026 based on that consensus that the working group stated to stick with the Vision Zero. So when we get to the end of the presentation, those are the numbers that I will be asking this group to approve at that point. Two other targets that we need to set on an annual basis, and that's transit asset management and transit safety. So for transit asset management, you're looking at the condition of different asset types for transit agencies, rolling stock such as buses, light rail vehicles, trolleys, things like that. Service vehicles, infrastructure, which in our region really just means light rail infrastructure in the city of Norfolk, and also facilities. So that's things like parking facilities, administrative facilities, the maintenance facilities for transit, things like that. Tier 1 agencies such as HRT, the larger transit agencies, must carry out their own transit asset management plans. Smaller agencies such as WADA and Suffolk Transit, they're able to join group plans. And in the state of Virginia, those are created by the Department of Rail and Public Transportation. And both WADA and Suffolk Transit do choose to use the DRPT statewide targets. So in order to produce our regional targets, all we do is we take the weighted average from HRT's targets based on their TAM plan, and then combine it with the weighted average of the WADA and Suffolk Transit targets based on the statewide DRPT targets. So showing here on this screen, there's a column, the 2026 HRT targets based on their plans, and then the ones that WADA and Suffolk Transit set. And then on the right, once again, that's just a weighted average based on the number of buses, the number of light rail vehicles, things like that. It's just a weighted average to come up with the regional targets on the far right that we'll be asking you to approve today. Last one is transit safety targets. So that's just fatalities, injuries, events, and reliability on the transit system. One thing I do want to note, though, is you need to come up with targets for these by mode. So it's fatalities on buses, fatalities on light rail transit vehicles, injuries on light rail transit vehicles, things like that. So when I show you the matrix here in a second, there's a lot of numbers because you have to do it by mode. But just do want to indicate on that's how you have to do it based on the legislation. This is very similar to the transit asset management ones where Tier 1 agencies must develop their own plans. So HRT has their own public transportation agency safety plan, and the Tier 2 ones are set by DRPT through their own statewide plan. And then for our numbers, we just come up with a weighted regional average like we did with the other transit targets. So for HRT, these are the safety targets. Target is 0 fatalities on their system throughout the entire system, regardless of mode. You can see their injury targets for bus. They have 0 for the other modes. Total safety events, and then the system reliability. How far what are the number of failures based on a per mile basis for each of the 4 modes. Once again, same thing for WADA and Suffolk Transit. The statewide rates that you see, those are set by DRPT. For example, the less than 0.5 injuries per 100,000 revenue miles, and then it's just applied to each transit agency based on the number of miles that they go. So those are the WADA and Suffolk Transit numbers. When you come up with a weighted average between the 3 agencies, this is the proposed transit safety targets that you see on here. I know that's a lot of information, but once again, thank you to the working group for fighting through this and helping us come up with the consensus that you see here today. With that, I'll open up for any questions, but then ultimately we'll be asking for approval of the 3 different sets of targets that you see on the screen.
I have a question.
Oh, yeah.
You will forgive me if this has been mentioned before in previous meetings, this being my first one. How are you, with your statistics, how are you measuring fatalities? Are we talking about fatality due to impact, or are we talking about fatality due to some health issue like a stroke? Or
It's ultimately defined by the Department of Motor Vehicles, so it's any fatality resulting from a traffic crash, I believe within 30 days of the crash. So either on site or within 30 days at the hospital, essentially. But we use the DMV's definition.
Thank you. And also, another one, forgive me. How does each locality help you with these statistics?
So all of their data is reported to DMV by their police departments and then ultimately their health departments. They're the ones who report it. So the city of Norfolk would report it through their police, once again, and health agencies directly to the state. The state is the one compiling this data, and then we just use the state databases or federal databases. For the fatalities, you actually need to use the federal databases, but it's all coming from the same source.
Thank you. I will pace myself with my questions.
Thank you.
I have just one question for Chesapeake. Could you, I'm sure you guys had this conversation in the working group, but could you walk through the conversation you had? Because I'm just noticing we're planning for 0 fatalities for transit, but we're also not planning for 0 fatalities for other transportation modes like vehicles.
Sure. So it's really 2 different conversations. In terms of the transit ones where you see 0, we just merely stick with the targets that the transit agencies themselves have already set. So we don't differentiate from what they said. We feel like we have no reason to override what HRT thinks their target should be, WADA, things like that. So that's how you get the 0. It's because that's what they think they'll have on their transit agency. Now, going back to the safety targets, historically, we've been doing these since 2018. So for the first couple years, we had a little bit different target that we had set in terms of fatalities and injuries. I think we went with a statewide target. I'm having trouble remembering, but right around 2020, that was really, especially as Vision Zero was taking off, and the thought was setting a target. Anything other than aiming for 0 just is really tone deaf in terms of what you're looking at in terms of safety. So maybe it's more aspirational than realistic, but it's also, how can you tell somebody that we think 150 fatalities on our roadways are acceptable? Great, we made our target. We only had 150 people killed. That was the conversation. And then since roughly 2020 till today, the conversation has been constantly the same. That's the story we need to tell. We're aiming for 0. We want nobody killed on our roadways. And so we know we can't get to 0 in 2026, but is there a date we can aim for? And so that's why we use the horizon of our LRTP and then just try to decrease it down each year by that. Mm-hmm.
How do we use this thing? Is this working? Yes. If you can raise your hand when you make a motion, that'll help do the minutes. Thanks. First and second. Thank you.
We're also all in on the Vision Zero concept at the county. Motion to approve.
Thank you.
Yeah, I'll bring this one up. So this was the handout that is in front of you. Sorry I didn't make it into the agenda. We got it sent out last week. But this is our public engagement plan, the PEP. This is not just for the HRTPO, but also the HRPDC. Quan did present this item at our October TTAC meeting. It was available for a public review from October 1st, 25 to November 15th, 25. And there were comments received, and Quan was able to incorporate those into the report and into the appendices of the report. So you can see on your handout that there's a QR code that will take you to a link with the updated and final report that we're hoping that we'll be able to get an action on today. And Quan is here if you have any questions or comments.
And John, if I may.
Yeah.
So on numbered page 47 of the document, if you're curious about any changes that were made, that's where the changes are detailed. As a quick run through, colors were updated to ensure readability and accessibility. The organizational chart was updated to reflect the accountability structure for Title VI and civil rights. The graphic detailing the membership of the PDC and TPO on pages 5 and 6 were made one color to provide greater clarity. Figures 1 and 2 were moved to more appropriately correlate to the organizational descriptions. The table of contents was updated to improve visibility and the page numbers were updated. So those were the changes made and they are listed in the appendix as well.
Thank you, Quan. Anybody have any questions? All right, motion to approve the plan? Motion. Thank you. Second?
Second.
Thank you. Better, Rob? Are we doing better now? Yeah. Okay, good. As long as Rob's happy.
Down this way here.
Thank you, guys. Appreciate it. All in favor? Any opposed? All right. Moving on, we've got a few presentations here, and I'm up, actually. So, Francis and Kyle? Awesome. All right. Good morning, everybody. For those who haven't figured it out yet, Keith Darrow, City of Norfolk. I'm joined by Francis Mull and Kyle Gilmer. Francis is our program and project delivery manager, and Kyle is our transportation strategic planner. Over the past few months, I think when John and Pavitra were going around talking to the different localities, one of the things they kept hearing was they wanted to see what other localities were doing. So we're going to try to do a very quick overview of what we're doing in Norfolk and take any questions you guys have. We're going to kind of fly through some of the highlights here as quick as we can. This is just our quick overview of all the bullet points we're going to hit. So for those who aren't familiar, City of Norfolk has a full-on Department of Transportation. We used to be the Division of Transportation under Public Works, and we got pulled out as our own full department in 2019. So since then, we've been kind of building and growing from there and building out different divisions, and we've kind of got this structure here that you guys see. We have our administrative, our financial, and our environmental sustainability sections. We have our operations folks, which are handling the day-to-day signs, signals, that pavement markings, that kind of thing. Kyle oversees our planning function, and he'll talk about some of his initiatives. And then I oversee the engineering division, which includes Francis's team, and he'll talk on his stuff, our safety team, and our traffic management center, with controlling all 19 signals now that we have in the city of Norfolk. With that, I'll turn it over to Francis.
All right. Hello, everyone. So just wanted to go over some of our metrics of our federally and state funded program. So we have a $231 million program that's over the 6 years, consisting of 63 projects. So, we have VHSIP, Smart Scale CMAQ, Revenue Sharing, SGR, RSTP, HRTAC. And some of the metrics I put up here are from our latest sustainability data that each locality should have with VDOT. And so I wanted to show kind of the greens that we have, which means good, that we have on our sustainability dashboard. So, for on-time percentage, there's a target of like 70%. And so, we're at 83.3. And then, let's see, projects that are carryover, which, it's bad to have a backlog of projects. So we're at 0%. So that means Norfolk has no carryover. We have no backlog currently. And then fiscal management, we're doing pretty good, except that 81% there, that's red. And that's due to kind of when you start having like a flood of agreements coming in and you're not able to execute them kind of all at once, it kind of puts a damper on your expenditures because they're considered active on VDOT's end. And so when you're going through the process of executing agreements, you can't spend money on those projects. So they just kind of show in a negative light, but that's that. And okay, and then we'll move going on to like some of the bigger projects that we have going on. This is Westminster Avenue reconstruction. It is a revenue sharing project. It's full reconstruction of the roadway. So in the back, so this corner, on this southeast part of the map there, we have Vulcan Materials and Capital Concrete that operate through this neighborhood, and they take Westminster. I have it highlighted there. They take Westminster as a route through the neighborhood. So that roadway, you can see the picture there, gets beat up pretty severely. And, you know, a simple mill and overlay doesn't cut it. Like that 2-inch, 3-inch mill and overlay doesn't even last. So we have to reconstruct the entire roadway. Includes replacing, you know, the poor soils, fully replacing the pavement section, a whole bunch of stormwater improvements. Part of the problem in this neck of the woods is that there's very little drainage. And so that's contributing a lot to the degradation of the roadway. So the project budget right now is $10.7 million, and we hope to bid that in spring of 2026. And then Virginia Beach Boulevard Phase 2. This is kind of near the intersection of Newtown Road. And we are getting rid of those, I guess, utility roads or service roads, the feeder lanes, and we're converting it to traffic lanes. And so we've done, phase 1 was, remind me again, it was from Newtown now? To George Street, yeah. And so we're continuing that on the eastbound side from George back to Newtown Road. And this is the first design build project for LAP in Hampton Roads. So we're pretty excited about it. And RFP, we plan in sometime 2027 to release that. St. Paul's, I'll turn it over to Keith.
Thank you, sir. Yeah, thank you, Francis. So in our downtown area, we used to have a lot of subsidized housing right there across the street from Scope and MacArthur Mall. And the city management has been trying to redevelop that area for a few decades now. And that really kind of got jump-started with the Choice Neighborhood Initiative grant that they got, I want to say in mid-2010s. And so from there, they were able to start their development, which means now we need new infrastructure. It was a lot of old infrastructure that had no stormwater runoff, very old pavement that was just falling apart, not well maintained. So basically we came in, as you come in off of Market Street there and you make that right turn on the St. Paul's, look off to your right behind the Popeyes. We've completely torn it all down, starting from scratch, building all new roadways, new water, sewer utilities, whole lot of stormwater now. And that actually, all that stormwater will collect into what you guys see here on the east side, the green and blue area, the Blue Greenway, that will help that historically flooded area. So Norfolk, this part of Norfolk right down Tidewater Drive actually used to be a creek, and we just kind of filled it in over centuries, and water has memory. It's come back heavily. So we're hoping that Blue Greenway will help really retain a lot of the stormwater, collect it, and create a nice community for everyone here. So I should mention St. Paul's is on your west side or that left side, Tidewater Drive. You've got Brambleton Boulevard up at the north there, and then Market Street and 264 there at the bottom of the photo. So, and this is really just kind of the start of what we want to do as the city. Right here, we're starting with what is now called Kindred, the old Tidewater Gardens development. And we're going to be moving north on Brambleton to Calvert Square and Young Terrace, redeveloping those areas with a very similar kind of model. So from a roadway perspective, this was a mix of revenue sharing. We went after build twice, finally got on the second round when we were further along in the design. And I really think that helped solidify that funding source. And also along with this, and actually Kyle will talk about this later, is we have a new study on this area, how to redesign this entire network around the area so this connects better to what we're doing right here with this redevelopment. So a lot of coordination. We have 2 new signals coming in as a part of this, a new bridge going over the Blue Greenway. There used to be an old YMCA there. We had to coordinate with them. So really from the roadway perspective, I've been coordinating with utilities, stormwater, developer, city management, Norfolk Redevelopment and Housing Authority, VDOT and their team, FHWA, because Build was actually a direct recipient. So we actually did not go through VDOT as the pass-through. We went directly with FHWA. So that was a whole new sort of challenges that we did not anticipate. So a lot of lessons learned on that. So yeah, and St. Mary's Basilica is right there in that purple, right down there. Historically African-American Catholic Basilica, had to work around them. They're still having active services as we're sitting there tearing up all the roads to and from their facility. So a lot of coordination into this development. Another thing we've been doing, excuse me, in 2015, Norfolk completed their bike and pedestrian plan, which basically highlighted 12 different corridors throughout the city where we wanted to improve bike infrastructure. And that plan, like I said, was done in 2015. We have learned a lot since then. So all those recommendations now have basically had to be reevaluated as we decide to go after these corridors for funding. We've learned what cyclists want, what makes it safer for vehicles. So we've really tried to reevaluate this bike ped plan as we go for funding. And we've been pretty successful with it. We've had a few things that were pretty straightforward, some off-road paths through parks, that kind of thing. But probably the biggest thing from it right now has been the Granby Street bike lanes. We got smart scale funding for that. We went through a huge public engagement outreach program, I guess, so to speak. We did traffic analysis. We had multiple public meetings during COVID, after COVID, and it actually helped tweak the design. For example, that the 2015 plan had just paint as a recommendation. So we applied for it in 2016 with just paint, $822,000. We've learned since then, obviously, that that's not really the best for Granby Street, given that it's, a wider roadway, a lot of vehicles. So we actually supplemented it with city funds to put concrete barriers and flexible delineators along Granby Street as well. So, like I said, there's a lot of public outreach, still getting comments on it today. But we are going through that. And some of the things we've had to coordinate on that one alone, since this is more residential, is waste management, HRT pickups that are along the area. So it's not a perfect project, but it's the start of what could eventually evolve into, and we'll go back and evaluate and make changes throughout the corridor to help make sure that it's safe and everyone can traverse it no matter what they're using. So our next one is probably going to be the South Side Bike Lane Network. That is corridor, I don't know if you guys can see that on the map there, 6 and 9 roughly, Indian River Road down there in the Campostella section. We're going through our traffic analysis now, and our public engagement's about to kick off with those neighborhoods down there. To really get the buy-in, to make sure we understand, so people understand what we're trying to do, and we can understand what they want out of the project as well. So making sure we're providing all these multimodal options for everybody. And we've learned from the bike infrastructure perspective that it really helps to have that upfront engagement even before we apply for projects. Some of these we're a little behind the 8 ball on with Granby and Southside, but we've learned before we're putting in funding now, we're doing these comprehensive plans and programs through Kyle's team to make sure we have that public buy-in, make sure we know what the design's going to be. We're not just going off of the bike ped plan and saying, oh, this is what we want. And this is, this plan's adopted, this is what we're going to do. So it really is a lot of extra effort on our part up front before we even apply for this stuff. Just a few other ones that we're working on. Ocean View Avenue, that is city funded right now along, you can't see it on the map, basically on the north side of the city, all the way from Willoughby over to Shore Drive. I'm really trying to expand the bike lane network there. We have bike lanes from Cape View to Shore right now. We're trying to expand it westward towards the library and First View. Lafayette Boulevard, like I mentioned, we're going through these studies. We're going through one right now at getting feedback on how we want to improve the roadway, how we want that bike lane repurposing to look along Lafayette Boulevard. Elizabeth River Trail, Kendra's come to speak here plenty of times on her trail and the 10.5 miles, I believe, that we have going through the city of Norfolk. We've been working with her and her team to look to see where we can expand it, north and east, especially connecting out to Virginia Beach's trail as well. So that is a constant effort. We've spent a lot of federal funds on that to expand it. Most recent one was, I want to say, 2020. So we're trying to support them as a nonprofit through the federal funds as the city. And one thing, I didn't really explain it very well in the opening here, but transportation really focuses on new projects, the federal funding, and then operating our signals, signs, and pavement markings. It's going to get confusing, but roadway maintenance is still handled with Public Works. They still have all the crews and the asphalt equipment to handle all that stuff. So when they come up with resurfacing projects, whether it's a neighborhood street or a minor collector, we work with them to say, all right, if we have the public engagement ahead of time, we'll try to do something more substantial like bike lanes. But if we don't, let's just try to put some sharrows out there. At least get people familiar with that fact that cyclists could be out here, could be using the roadways, to really just kind of change that culture here at Norfolk. So we try to work with them as well to really try to find any opportunity to include it, and also with development projects as well. And with that, I'll hand it over to Kyle to talk about this stuff.
Great, thank you. Good morning. So the next couple of slides, I could dive in, grab an entire workshop on these, but these are very high level under the purview of the planning division. So our micromobility program, we have a partnership with Lime. We launched our e-scooters in 2019, then later on in 2021, we added our e-bikes. It's a citywide program that is permitted and actively managed by our team. So on a day-to-day basis, we're fielding complaints, we're looking at areas for parking corrals. It's a dockless system, but we have a couple, 23, 24 different corrals strategically located in our downtown area and a couple other corridors. With this ongoing management, we're looking at our fleet size. So we're close to about 3,000 vehicles between our scooters and our bikes. And then we also have a lot of coordination with different departments and stakeholders. When special events come up, we have to coordinate through line with either disabling the vehicles, reducing the speed, removing them from the area, things like that. Our micromobility program is well used for our short trips across the city. So we have hotspot maps where we see these short trip demand corridors that really show us the corridors where people are using these non-auto vehicles there. In terms of the operation side, we are actually expanding our programming. We're expanding the programming. We're looking at focusing on our more vulnerable communities towards the east side of our city. In terms of the technical components, so this is really where all the data comes in, how we use this data from this program. The trip and data connections, that really informs our pedestrian network planning. As Keith mentioned, our bike and ped plan, and then it ties directly into other of our planning efforts, such as our multimodal plan, safety action plan, and a couple other major projects, such as our reconnecting communities. So in terms of our multimodal transportation master plan, this is our citywide framework that looks at the different modes in terms of accessibility, safe, and connected mobility. So the three pillars of our master plan is safety, connectivity, and then equity. The core components of this is Norfolk's first citywide multimodal plan that was finished in 2022. And part of this plan is a needs assessment and analysis that's looking at all of the modes. And from that, there's a series of assessments that ends up giving us a prioritized list of resource allocation plan, which is our short-term needs, and then our program of projects, which would be our long-term needs. All of this ties together, of course, to our other planning initiatives, especially our Complete Streets and Safety Action Plan. And then from the technical component, our master plan really drives our capital planning and grant strategies when we're pursuing funding. So it really informs those different corridor studies that we're looking at and the decision-making from that. Overall, it supports our safety and data tracking. We have a data dashboard online where you can see the different vehicles and data trips and things like that, and it's only expanding from there. So talking about our multimodal master transportation plan, one of the pillars was safety. So recently in the past year, in January 2025, we completed a safety action plan. This is a data-driven, equity-focused roadway safety plan that really is built on our Vision Zero policy that was adopted by City Council in 2019, looking at our horizon year through the target year of 2050. So this was a federally supported planning effort through our Safe Streets for All planning. And then it's really rooted and grounded in community input. So there's tons of engagement opportunities through our civic leagues in our neighborhoods, different stakeholders, and then we had an advisory group that helped with this plan. Overall, and in the end, the output from this is the map that you see over here. It's our high injury network. So it uses crash data and emphasis areas such as equity to identify those corridors where we see those high injury networks. This feeds from the analysis to our prioritization framework, that graphic there on the bottom. The different components of that framework is our safety benefit, our equity impact, cost, and then implementation feasibility. So really this plan is looking at, we're identifying those prioritized countermeasures of the safety action plan, And then how do we get these projects into the pipeline to implementation? So Keith briefly mentioned this, but high level on this one are reconnecting communities. This is sort of our I-264 corridor planning studies looking at our spaghetti bowl to say in our area, in our downtown area. This has really come up from historic interstate infrastructure that has created those physical and social barriers with the reconnection mindset in there. So currently right now, it limits a lot of our bike ped and local street connectivity between these different areas of downtown Norfolk, Harbor Park, Norfolk State University, and the surrounding neighborhoods. A little quick study background from this. The study has come up from a 2018 brownfields planning and some early redevelopment that's going on there since the St. Paul's and Kendrick development. It was funded through the US DOT Reconnecting Communities program. And overall, what's being evaluated is really those multimodal reconnection concepts across the I-264 corridor spaghetti bowl area. So we're really focusing on those different mode choices along the local streets, bike and ped, and then transit access improvements. And it will be driven mostly by community focus design alternatives. We're hoping to kick off our public engagement here in a few weeks and then ends at about April timeframe. From a technical perspective, the analysis that will be part of this is a traffic analysis and an interchange access report. And there'll be tons of coordination with our VDOT, HRT, and our regional partners through this project. And now I'll pass it back over.
So clearly, we've got plenty of work going on in transportation, but there's even more work going on at the city that we still have to coordinate and provide our expertise on. So these are just a few of them that we're working on. The flood wall, you guys can see in that photo there, constantly worked on with the Army Corps of Engineers and our Office of Resilience. We have been working with them to see if any roadways need to be reconfigured, how the flood wall will actually interact with pedestrians and the roadway when the floodgates would be closed. So we're working with them on that and providing guidance. Maury High School, huge redevelopment over in the Ghent area, working a lot with the MOT, how the pedestrians and students are accessing the school. They are expanding the site. If you guys are familiar with the area, Llewellyn Avenue there. Maury High School was really just on the west side, but now they're expanding it to the west and the east side. So we've got a lot of pedestrians crossing this minor collector. We want to make sure everyone's staying safe and everyone has access to it. The DSIP, that is short for Defense Community Infrastructure Program. So that was something our Office of Resilience is doing over Hampton Boulevard, just south of the bridge there on the Lafayette River. They are raising the road there at Lexington Avenue over by Water's Edge Winery, and we are working with them to upgrade that signal there. We are also using the opportunity to hopefully implement a rest and red operation. I think we've heard plenty from not only here at the HRTPO, but in the city of Norfolk that Hampton Boulevard has some speeding problems. So we're trying to incorporate some operational changes as well when these projects come up. Headwaters Casino, they are full on and active construction. Temporary casino is open down there in the Harbor Park area. Also impacted by the Reconnecting Communities project as well. So they are reconfiguring Park Avenue. They're adding a new traffic signal as part of that development. So we are there trying to make sure that our signals are programmed properly and the roadway, again, is aligned and will serve the needs that it needs to. Scope, Chrysler Hall, MacArthur Mall, Military Circle, just redevelopments that are going on that, again, we are providing maintenance of traffic, pedestrian recommendations to make sure these things are accessible projects at the end, essentially. And then again, I mentioned the NRHA redevelopments. We are already in active talks with NRHA to redevelop and how that roadway grid will look for Calvert Square and Young's Terrace. So with that, Francis, you want this one?
One more slide for you, sir. All right. So this is lessons learned and considerations. I mean, this is primarily from, I guess, the application perspective in the project. Funding applications, I mean, we've shot ourselves in the foot a couple times with VDOT oversight costs, particularly with there's a accounting group. Consider VDOT oversight costs and pull it apart from the project overall budget because it's technically not anything that we spend up front. We have to set it aside. Shot ourselves in the foot a couple times. Oh, sorry. And then what else? Scheduling milestones. I mean, I think this is something that everyone is familiar with as far as meeting your milestones and your deadlines and using those as good metrics of far as, how well you're performing on your project and if you're going to be able to, meet your award date. With VDOT in particular, it's either you're red or you're green. And so, although there's opportunities to recover to become green if you miss a milestone, but it's not a good look, and it kind of forebodes poorly for the project if you miss a few of those milestones. Right away, verify existing and all your right away needs early. Temporary construction easement licenses with the federal government, it takes time to execute these things. So, negotiating with property owners. I mean, a lot of times they have big money signs in their eyes starting off when you talk to them, and it's important to set expectations early when you coordinate with these property owners. So, and then NEPA and SERP, things to consider is tree clearing timeframes and permitting. So, I know with the Westminster project, we're running up some deadlines where there's, I guess, one of the federal permits are expiring, and it's around the time that we want to bid the project. So it's kind of a consideration whether we bid it before the permit expires and then, and then make sure we renew it before we start construction, or we just kind of wait and see what the new, I guess, requirements are, and then, bid the project and then apply for the permit, or apply for the permit, then bid the project. And then private utility agreements, it's always good to do. This kind of goes in a right of way. But also, make sure you do some good research when you're going over your, when you're reviewing your properties, because sometimes there's some easements and some things that we're unaware of. We had a project where it didn't show up on anything that VNG had an easement, and also some utilities going through a property. And we started construction, ran into a conflict, and sure enough, on some other documents, it showed up that they had something there, but we had to, redesign in the field, and it cost us some money. Documentation. This is always the big thing. This is your money. This is where your money's at. You have to pay attention to your documentation, federal and VDOT documentation. When it comes to reimbursements, nothing's getting improved unless that documentation is in order. So it's good to get you a CEI consultant and work very closely with them, and to be always up to date and current on your LAP manual and all the federal requirements for documentation, especially with BABA requirements, and then also that waiver that's expiring. This is going to open up a whole new wave of issues for projects being executed after when the waiver expired, October, November last year. But so any projects bid after that, that you're working on now, be interested to see how it unfolds. And then public outreach, it's always a big thing. Make sure you coordinate with everyone up front. It just makes your projects go so much easier, especially, making it clear that this project is coming down the pipeline. There's always going to be maybe one or two residents or somebody that's like, I didn't know this was happening. But when you get a community consensus, it always makes the project go that much more smoother when you get the support of the community. So do that early and often, and that's really what you have to do. So that's what we got. Oh, there's one more? Oh, there you go. Dan, there's more?
Almost done.
All right, I'll wrap us up here. So, with all these different programs and initiatives that we have going on in our department, the broad spectrum of our website and our outreach, With our website, if you have ever visited or looked at it, we recently did an overhaul of the different transportation web pages. We try to make them a little bit more streamlined, public friendly, engaging, and easy to navigate and find our different resources. We have tons of interactive maps, educational dashboards, or the public loves our dashboards, our stakeholders and our elected officials love our dashboard, so we really try to leverage that through any of our data that we have relating to the public. And of course, our performance tracking too with that. Throughout this, we're doing early engagement. We want to be as transparent, accessible as possible with engagement opportunities. So with our different plans and projects, we will have civically meetings. We'll do all the different avenues for socializing these different meetings or surveys or plans. So just a little breakdown over there on the right. We're looking at, the different plans that we have. So we have our current projects and studies page. That's looking at projects that are under development, design, construction, and completed. Throughout all these different pages, the different tools for interactive ways to engage with this data. Educational dashboards, as I just mentioned. We have a calendar and notifications, so that's especially for our civic league meetings and key touch points with our public on public events. And of course, overall, just like community input through the surveys. We have a couple surveys coming up, tons of civic leagues coming up from these different surveys. And with that, I think we're finished. Thank you.
Yeah, I have one. Thank you so much for the presentation. That was great. With your interactive transportation webpage, do you have projects listed on there? So that people can go in and see like schedule and funding and all that stuff?
Yeah,
Okay, cool.
yeah, it's right, yeah, top right corner.
Does it have plans to show like exactly what's happening, or do they have to come in and kind of call to figure out what's
So
happening?
certain projects listed on there, and Keith and Francis, please feel free to jump in. Certain projects on there, we will have the plans. We have a project info sheet on most of our pages. We try to keep up our website as up to date as possible. We have other different internal sort of spreadsheets that we update, so we try to translate that to the public. But
we try to do color exhibits as
Yeah.
well, because they really don't want to see the plans. It's
Yeah.
a lot of lines and
Yeah.
shapes. So
Yeah, okay.
we just try to, if we can do a color exhibit, we will put that on the website if it's a big enough project.
And then the other one is related to the bike ped. I love the goals for multimodal of safety, connectivity, and equity. I mean, like those, sometimes I think as a planner, I get in the weeds of all these goals, and I think those are the three basics. For your bike, I guess reconstructing the roadway, removing lanes mainly, FHWA's graph where they have the speed and the number of lanes, and then they recommend what bike facility. Would you find that the ones that you're constructing fall within that realm, those recommendations, or does the bike community want something different, or do you find yourself out of those realms, and then how do you?
We use them as guidelines, but we kind of get out of those realms a little bit because each corridor is different in Norfolk. I mean, you've got the downtown area, you've got the suburban area, then you've got Ocean View, then the south side's completely different from that. So we really try to tailor it to what is there, what the uses are, and what that community is looking for. Like I said, the Granby Street was originally just paint, and we realized we needed more for the bike folks, but that created issues with waste management and school bus pickup. So we really had to tailor it and work with the community as best we can. And we also look at one thing too that we didn't really mention, we do have a web page for it, is our speed reduction program. So we've gone throughout the city and reduced all of our 25 mile per hour residential streets down to 20 miles per hour. And for some of these larger corridors where we're doing some lane repurposing, we're also evaluating the speeds there and like, all right, can we lower that a little bit as well? So it maybe falls a little more in line when we're doing these lane repurposing.
Thanks again.
Yeah, thank you guys.
Question?
Yeah, I just wanted to say I really appreciated how you detailed the incorporation of engagement throughout every step of the process. I think that's so important. I had the opportunity to attend one of your sessions in 2025 about the Blue Greenway. And I just think it's a great model. I'm inspired for some of the work that we can do here at the regional level just by, what we've seen and what you're sharing. So thank you.
Yeah, no, thank you. I mean, we've really found, to that point, we've found, and Francis referenced it, it's bitten us in the butt before. We assumed we had a 2015 adopted plan. We figured, all right, council adopted it. Let's go get funding. Let's do it. Then we got there in the public and we got torn to shreds. So, and that's putting it mildly. So we really have developed this comprehensive plan structure, so to speak. And again, we tailor it depending on Ocean View is going to be different than Lafayette and that kind of thing. But we really do try to tailor it to that community and the road usage. And we're changing all the time. We're learning from you guys, Quan, and vice versa, like you mentioned. We're trying to see what works in other localities, and we're tailoring that. And really the benefit to us being our own department is having the planning structure. So when Francis and his team, who are back in the corner, when they get these projects, they're not getting skewered by the public. We've already done that upfront work with Kyle and his team. So we're really getting this kind of pipeline, this workflow going where project development, public outreach, get the funding, and then it goes to Francis and his team for execution. So it really is starting to work for us. It's not without its faults, but we're tweaking it every time. Any other questions? Awesome. Thank you, guys. Appreciate it. All right. Next up, we got agenda item 13, special studies.
Thank you, Keith.
Yes, sir. Thank you.
So I'll be talking to you all about special studies that we might put into the next year's UPWP, which that work would start generally on July 1. And so first, what is the UPWP? Well, it's the Unified Planning Work Program. Thank you. And so it's basically describes the work that we do on an annual basis. We and our partners, like HRT and VDOT. And it covers, like I said, that fiscal year, July 1 to June 30, updated annually. We're going to distribute it to you for review in early spring and approval in May. So what about special studies? Well, we have some staff hours to do special studies, a few a year. And they're in addition to the required federal programs that you've been hearing about today, Long Range Transportation Plan that Dale was talking about, the TIP that John's talking about, the CMP that Keith's talking about, and then public involvement that Quan was talking about. And so they can address specific questions that you have. And so, for example, this year, FY26, we're halfway through, and we're doing about 4 of these. We've got rail freight, active transportation, and performance measures, and you can see a rail crossing study, freight movement, trail usage forecasting tool, which I will present next a week from today in this building for the Active Transportation Subcommittee. And then performance measures that Keith is always talking about. But this is a special study of the relationship between state of good repair and bridge conditions that his team is working on. So those are some examples. Here are more examples and more topic areas, anything and everything from, we've already mentioned some of these, but even economics, funding, legislative, military, on, everything that you and I deal with. And so we've done them, and we can do more, and it might even be a topic area that's not listed there. So the next step would be to, if you have a need, to discuss it with me, and then we would like ideas by Friday the 23rd, so we can put our document together. And then what we'll do is we'll look and compare the need to our hours available, and then add feasible tasks to the document, as I mentioned. I guess that's it. If we can go back, then I can take any questions.
Yeah, I don't have a question, Rob, but I just want to say we've used this program before at Norfolk to evaluate the Elizabeth River Trail and that eastern extension. You guys were a huge help with some of that stuff with this. So
Thank you. Yeah,
appreciate that.
Yeah, we enjoyed working on that, and it would be great if we could get those trails connected.
Hey, Rob, is this just for internal staff to do a study, or could you do like a structural analysis kind of study? Like hire a consultant? Or, do y'all do that in-house?
Okay, a couple of things. One, occasionally we do most of this in-house. Two, structural what? Okay, like. Well, yeah, no, we don't have that. I did take statics in 1979. So, I understand bending moments, but that's about it. So I don't know if that helps you, but I don't see that. I don't see that happening. Just off the top of my head. Yeah.
I don't have a study in mind per se yet, but I have a problem area that, and this was kind of highlighted. We had VDOT district construction training opportunity yesterday, and they're talking about the Buy America, BABA, the manufactured materials, and all the changes that are coming out. And one of the things that I was hoping we could maybe look at as a region is how we can provide training to our contractors. And how we can provide it almost on an ongoing basis so that they don't have to like one and done, whether that's adding something to the LAP conference or coming up with something similar to the LAP qualifications training for the VDOT pre-qualified bidders list. But we a lot of times run into people and we're like, do you have, federal experience? And they're like, yes. And then you go to pre-construction and you're like, you have to do all this thing. And they're just nodding. And then they make their first submission and it's a disaster. And VDOT does put a lot of energy into making sure the localities get training, and they also have resources available to us. And I'm wondering how we as a region can trickle that down. Is somebody else providing that and we could just pick it up and use it here? Or is FHWA providing anything that we're not aware of that we could deploy here?
Yeah, we can love to talk to you about that, and we could do a little bit of research on it, and so just let me know. Yeah, it sounds good. Okay. All right. I think that's it, but I'm staying up here because.
Rob, when do you need to know by, for the special projects? Do you need to know today?
Friday the 23rd.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, so you got a little bit. Okay. Well, this is not exactly a special project. We don't have a report on this, but we have been tracking the changes that the Long Bridge project up over the Potomac in DC will have on our passenger rail service. And we've been working closely and intensely with the state on this. So in the lower right-hand corner, that's an Amtrak bus. So you might not know that Amtrak does run some buses in addition to their trains. And so that's what I'm going to talk about today. First, if you may or may not be familiar with the Long Bridge project, but it's over $2 billion to improve the crossing of the Potomac there. And if you think about it, the coastal South, Florida, Georgia, South Carolina, North Carolina, Virginia, if they're going to get to the Northeast, these trains, a lot of them are crossing right here to get to Baltimore, Philadelphia, New York, and Boston. And so the next crossing upriver is at Harper's Ferry, which is a good ways inland. And so, you got a lot of usage of this, and right now there are two tracks, and the idea is to put 4, to add 2 more. And so you can sort of think of it as like an HRBT type thing where you're doubling the capacity. And so part of that, as you can see on the blue line, is on the land itself. It's not just across the river. It's on the land going up to L'Enfant Plaza. And so that part, actually the land part, is what is going to mess up the train travel. And what they've agreed in the contracts with the contractor is to cease operation for a period each weekday so that they can work on these parallel tracks. So it's 5 hours closure window, starts on the 12th, which I guess is Monday. And the duration, expect this to be about a 5-year construction period. And so they can't work at night in DC and things like that, stretching out the construction period. So VPRA came into this room in October and presented to our board. Some of you may have seen that on the preliminary proposed service changes and warning us about the buses and that kind of thing. And then, but today we've got, actual numbers, because if you're booking travel for next week or and beyond, then the website show you what is available as opposed to what, we thought might be available. So first, today we have what I'll call one-seat service. Well, let me bring your attention to the lower right-hand corner of the map where you see the purple. Today, there are buses. I don't think they're as big as that bus, but there are buses that run from Virginia Beach to the Norfolk station, and then from the Norfolk station to the Newport News station. And it's not for every train, but for a lot of the trains, you can make these bus connections. So you can actually buy a ticket from Virginia Beach to Washington, D.C. or wherever. And then part of that ticket is this little bus ride to Norfolk. Okay, so I'm calling those connection buses, as opposed to what you'll see these other bus routes that I'm going to show you. But today, this one seat from Newport News or Williamsburg or Norfolk, you don't have to get on a little bus. You just go to the station and those stations. And we have 2 trains on the peninsula and 3 trains on the south side. And when we say train, we're talking about 2 arrivals and 2 departures. Okay, so it is actually sort of 2 physical trains, because they turn around in Hampton Roads, as you're familiar with our geography. So then, planned for years, for this year, for 2026, for years we've been planning on having an additional train on the peninsula, and then the same number of trains in Norfolk. So that would be 3 and 3. Well, the actual, because of this Long Bridge project, is a little different. And so as you can, let's look at the map again in the big bus. So now, starting Monday, you'll be able to one seat on a bus from Virginia Beach, and it'll stop in Norfolk Station, it'll stop at Newport News Station, and then it won't stop again until Union Station in DC, which is pretty amazing. So if we go back, you can see here the train stops, of course, in Williamsburg, Petersburg, twice in Richmond sometimes, Ashland, Fredericksburg, Quantico, Alexandria, and DC. Okay, and it does pretty well because it doesn't stay long in most of those places. But the bus will have even better travel time, say from Newport News on, because it's not stopping. And the other thing is it serves all 3 of these locations. Every bus serves all 3 of these locations in Hampton Roads: Virginia Beach, Norfolk, and Newport News. So the actual, instead of for Newport News, instead of 3 trains, you'll have 2 trains and 2 buses for 5 years. So two new routes, if you will, that are both buses. Williamsburg, it'll just be the same as today. It's just the two trains because the buses don't stop in Williamsburg. Then Norfolk coming down will have two trains and two buses. So it'll lose one of its trains, but it gains two buses. So it gains an additional route. And then Virginia Beach, even though today you can get on the little bus and go to a train, this is a new one-seat service from Virginia Beach where you get on and you go all the way to DC without changing your seat. So that's actually a new service that hasn't existed. Well, I guess Amtrak has never run a bus from Virginia Beach to Washington until next Monday. So I don't know if all that makes sense to you, but then let's look at a table. And so this is northbound. These are our trains and our buses. And I'm going from Virginia Beach, Norfolk, Newport News, Williamsburg, Washington. And it should be noted that the trains keep going. They keep going to New York or Boston, but the buses will not. They'll turn around, come back here from Washington. So you can see you've got, depending on where you are, you've got different options. Virginia Beach, you've got these two connector buses to trains, and then these two new buses all the way to Washington. Norfolk, I'm just coming across. Norfolk, you have three, let's see here. You got the two bus options, you got the two trains, and then you got the little connector over to the Newport News train at 2:25. Then Newport News, you've got a real early morning. This is something new. The earliest over there now, I think, is around 6 or 5 something, but it'll be 4 a.m. train. And if you want to get to Washington by 8 o'clock, there you go. But you've got your two buses and you've got your two connections to Norfolk. In purple, these little connector buses are described. And so you got options. Williamsburg, like I said, stays the same, except it's earlier in the morning, 4:24. And then that's when you would get to Washington, either at 8 or 10 or 1 or 5 or 7 or 8 or 9. So, that's pretty good spread out through the day. And then we have a similar situation coming southbound, Washington on the left. So again, you can leave 2 different times in the morning, 4 different times in the afternoon. And depending on where you're going. So that is that. And then, like I said, it'll change on Monday. I'm going to try it on the 29th. Bought my ticket yesterday, which amazingly, and I think the bus and train prices are the same. Y'all want to guess how much one way to Washington if you have a 2-week advance? $27. Okay, pretty amazing. So, anyway, I'm going to try that, and it's going to be a long day. My plan is to get up at 4:30, leave my house at 5, get the train at 5:30 in Virginia Beach, gets to Washington at 10:45, and then catch the 12:15 bus from Washington, get back in Virginia Beach at 5. Hour and a half. And yeah, I'm gonna get a snack. And so anyway, I think it's the actual same bus. So I guess I could just sit on. They'd probably kick me off, but sit on the bus. But anyway, so I'm going to try that just to see what it's like. For example, I drove down. Who knows where the stop is today in Virginia Beach for the little buses that run today to Norfolk. Does anybody know where that is, including your Virginia Beach people? No and no and no. It is at the conference center. That's Park Avenue, I guess. There's 3 shelters there. And unfortunately, there's no Amtrak sign there, even though this is, what happened, it used to be down by Pharrell's thing, the wave pool. That's where it used to be down there, but they moved it to the convention center, and there's no sign. So you could go there today, literally, to catch your bus to Norfolk, and there'd be no sign. So anyway, we talked to the state about that, and they've talked to Amtrak, and they're going to get a sign for it. So anyway, so we're working on that, and we're going to continue to monitor this for the 5 years to see, well, are people riding these buses? And then they said, if there's enough, they could even run more buses if they needed to, but we'll see. So then the last bullet there, we're continuing to work. We've added to our legislative agenda the reduction of rail travel time, just general train service issues, travel times issues that we've been working on for years. So are there any questions about this? Yes, Keith.
Yeah, Rob, I'll start off. Will the buses, since this is going to be going on for 5 years, will the buses be able to use the express lanes at all?
Yes, I believe they will. Okay. And that's one of the things I want to find out when I ride. But I believe they will because they are considering a short travel time, believe it or not, 3 hours from Newport News to Union Station. If you look northbound, Newport News, well, that one is 3.5. 7:15 to 10:45, but this one is 3 hours down at the bottom, 5:45 to 8:45. So they must be considering getting into those lanes. Okay.
All right, thank you.
Yeah, that was kind of my same line of thinking, because the bus is going to be on 95.
Yeah.
Are there buses now, or the bus is the new service?
The bus is a new service. What I'm calling a longer distance bus for Amtrak is a new thing, just for this Long Bridge project. Around the country, there are these shorter buses that connect to trains, okay? But this is to avoid that 5-hour window in DC. That's the purpose of these buses, if I didn't make that clear.
Okay.
For example, you can take a little Amtrak bus from Richmond across 64 to Charlottesville and catch the train going down to Atlanta and New Orleans. So there are these little connectors around the country. We've got some, and then other places have them too.
I have a quick question. Do you know how the buses will interact with HRT schedules? So people they can get an HRT bus to the BB Conference Center and catch their train.
I do not know that, but that's a good point. Because, like I say, it's existing bus sort of transfer area there by the convention center. They got 3 big shelters there, so that's a good point. Okay. I guess that's it, Keith.
All right, thank you, sir. Appreciate it. With that, we'll move on to agenda item 15, formerly 14. John?
All right, me again. So please, we were going to put this in as an FYI for this agenda, but just wanted to make sure that everyone's aware of it, that our next meeting, the next TTAC meeting on February 4th is going to be all virtual. So remember the days of COVID where we had virtual meetings? Well, we're going to do it again because this room will be undertaking some audio-visual updates to allow us to be more flexible for all meetings in the future, be able to do some more hybrid meetings. So we're hoping to get that wrapped up, and so therefore we don't want to miss out on this important meeting, and we will be doing it virtually. We'll be sending out some reminders, really, some additional information on the meeting itself prior to the agenda being submitted a week before the meeting. And just, thinking ahead, make sure that your equipment is working properly. And we always seem to have some folks that seem to have some technical issues. But for this type of meeting under FOIA requirements, you have to be on the screen when you're participating in the meeting. Make sure your camera is working and such. But once again, we will send some additional information out to you so you can do this from your office, work from home. But we did have some requests to do this as well, and so we're going to see how this goes. And if you have any questions, please let me know. And that's pretty much all I have on that.
What's the platform? Teams, Zoom?
It'll be
WebEx?
Microsoft Teams. So if you don't have any experience with that, get some experience. And you got some time to do that, and I hope everyone can join us.
Awesome. Thank you, John. Appreciate it.
John, can I ask one question?
Yes, sir.
So last time we did this, we had to do the roll call vote, right? Where we had to go through every single person and say yes or no, whatever. My question is, for things we have to vote on, is there any chance like we could just say, is anyone opposed? And let that, kind of run the vote there so we don't have to go through 30 people saying yes or no. Is there any chance?
I don't see that as an issue, but our initial roll call for the to have the meeting for attendance is important.
Right.
As far as for the votes, that's something we can probably talk about, and it'll be part of our information we send out to you. I'll get an answer on that, but I don't see a problem with that because I've done meetings during COVID where it was done both ways.
Yeah.
But I'll find out, and I'll let y'all know.
Okay, appreciate it.
Yep.
Thank you, Dave. Thank you, John. All right, moving along, wrapping this agenda up here. Your 3-month schedule is ahead, including that virtual meeting. Some information on item 17, probably listed as 16 in your packet. And I don't think we had any announcements in here, right, John?
Yeah, there's some
Okay.
meetings coming up.
All right. Yep, there we go for the announcements. Just a few subcommittee meetings, the board meeting. Take a look at those schedules and let the correct staff know, or management, depending on who needs to attend those different meetings over the next month or so. Most of those appear to be in January. Yeah, go ahead, Dale. Thank you.
Trying to look over John's shoulder. Long Range Transportation Subcommittee will be in January. Again, if you haven't responded to the doodle poll, please do that today or by tomorrow at the latest. Appreciate it.
Dale, is that in person?
Yes, because we're going to have big spreadsheet actually picking the projects for the 2050. So we'll highly encourage, please have representation so we can make sure all the locality and agency priorities are properly included where we have appropriate funding.
Thank you, Dale. Appreciate that reminder. All right. And then lastly, any old or new business we haven't talked about yet? All right.
It's not, just one thing.
Yeah.
Not necessarily new business, but just wanted to announce Chesapeake's launching its microtransit zone with HRT on the 12th. So if you live in Greenbrier or Great Bridge, you can take their little microtransit for $2 anywhere in those areas.
Oh, that's great. Good little service to have. Awesome. Thank you, Enzo. Appreciate that. Anybody else? Last call? Oh, yeah, go ahead.
So I'll just piggyback on behalf of HRT. They're also launching their Hampton Microtransit Zone that same day at 10 a.m. So I just wanted to make sure that's highlighted. Also, Dale, for the Long Range Plan Subcommittee meeting, when is that scheduled?
I have the doodle poll out, so there's like 10 days.
Okay. I was trying to see if it was going to be potentially between that 15th and 16th because you have a number of other meetings that are like scheduled.
When I last looked, the 15th was the most selected date, and then maybe the 22nd or 23rd was the next.
Thank you.
All right. If there's no one else, anything else? All right, meeting adjourned.
All right.